GeneroBDL assigns default values to variables according to the variable data type. For example, an integer variable gets 0 for a default value, while a decimal variable defaults to null. It's typical for Genero developers to use the let statement to redefine or initialize variable values at the beginning of a function. First, you define the variables you'll use, and then initialize the variable values with a series of let statements, as you see here. Starting with Genero 3.20, the define instruction allows you to both define and initialize a variable. For example, you can eliminate the let statements for the two variables used here by assigning the variable values here in the define statements. If you have functions with many lines of these let statements, you can now remove them. By doing so, you'll reduce the code required at the beginning of your functions and improve the readability. This syntax works for modular and global scope variables as well. If you currently use initializer functions to initialize variables at startup, you may be able to remove them and use this technique instead. You can initialize record variables with a list of identifiers followed by a colon and the literal value surrounded with parentheses. You do not have to initialize all members of the record, and you can specify record members in any order when you initialize them. If you omit a record member, it will be initialized with a default value according to its data type. Initialize variables defined for database schema columns by specifying the initializer after the like clause. You can initialize date variables with an MDY literal. Note that a variable initializer must always be a static literal. You can't use expressions, such as a value returned by a function. If you'd like to learn more about this feature, you can read the Variable Initialization topic in the Genero Business Development Language User Guide. For a complete description of the variable initializer syntax, see the Define syntax topic.